The sharp crack of Admiral Hendrick's laughter cut through the Joint Intelligence Briefing Room at 14:30 hours like a rifle report, loud, performative, designed to wound. Natasha Volkov didn't look up from the floor she was mopping. Her hands, calloused and precise, maintained their rhythm across the polished concrete near the back corner of the room. The chemical smell of industrial cleaner mixed with the stale coffee scent that permeated every military briefing space she'd ever entered. And she'd entered many, more than anyone in this room knew. The briefing room held 43 people. She'd counted them as they entered over the past 20 minutes. 37 officers in various uniforms, Navy whites, working khakis, a few Marines indigicams. 4 Allied liaison officers. 2 British, 1 Australian, 1 Canadian. 2 civilian contractors with visitor badges. All eyes forward on the presentation about integrated security protocols and foreign intelligence threats. Ironic, given what she actually was. Admiral Hendrick stood at the podium, silver temples catching the fluorescent light, chest full of ribbons that told a story of committee assignments and administrative postings rather than combat deployments. 6'1", maybe 195 pounds, late 40s. Naval Academy ring prominent on his right hand. He adjusted it frequently, a nervous tell. She'd cataloged these details in her first week. Old habits from 8 years in FSB counterintelligence died hard. The PowerPoint slide behind him showed a grainy satellite image of a Russian military installation. She recognized it instantly. Khmeimim Air Base in Syria. She'd been there in 2015, embedded with a Spetsnaz unit during the Aleppo operations. The scar tissue on her left shoulder blade tightened at the memory. Shrapnel from an IED that nearly killed her and did kill the lieutenant standing 3 feet to her left. But here, she was just Tasha. Tasha Brennan, according to her base employment paperwork. Janitorial staff. 5'5", 132 pounds, mousy brown hair pulled tight in a regulation bun. Gray-green eyes that she kept downcast. Worn Navy coveralls that smelled faintly of bleach and anonymity. Hendricks clicked to the next slide. As you can see, Russian intelligence penetration remains our primary counterintelligence concern. They're sophisticated, patient, and they place assets in positions we'd never suspect. Commander Patricia Vance, seated in the 3rd row, turned slightly and caught sight of Natasha. 5'7", early 40s, dark hair in an immaculate bun, intelligence officer insignia crisp on her uniform. Her expression shifted, something between amusement and contempt. "Speaking of positions we'd never suspect," Vance said, voice carrying across the room. "Even the cleaning staff needs security clearance now, apparently." A few chuckles rippled through the audience. Hendricks paused mid-sentence, followed Vance's gaze to Natasha in the corner. His face transformed. The professional briefing expression melted into something crueler, more performative. He'd found an audience participation opportunity. "Well, well," Hendricks said, that sharp laugh punctuating his words. "Maybe we should get her assessment on Russian intelligence operations. What do you think?" He addressed the room but pointed at Natasha. "What's your analysis of foreign intelligence threats, sweetheart?" Natasha's grip on the mop handle tightened fractionally. Her knuckles aligned at efficient angles, weight distribution automatic. The combat-ready position she'd held 1,000 times with a Kalashnikov instead of a cleaning tool. She caught herself, loosened her stance. She said nothing. Continued the smooth back-and-forth motion across the floor. "Come on, don't be shy," Hendricks pressed, emboldened by the room's attention. "You've been in here, what, 20 minutes? Surely you've absorbed some classified intelligence by now?" More laughter. Phones emerging from pockets. The modern reflex. If something's funny or humiliating, record it. Lieutenant Commander Brett Culligan, seated near the front, turned fully around in his chair. 5'11", 180 pounds, mid-30s, seal trident prominent on his uniform. Buzzed blonde hair, aviator sunglasses hanging from his collar even indoors. The kind of operator who confused physical competence with total competence. "Maybe she can brief us on proper tactical floor waxing," Culligan offered. The room erupted. 43 people, and maybe 5 weren't laughing. Natasha noted those 5. Always note who doesn't join the cruelty. They're either decent or calculating. One of them was Master Chief Petty Officer James Riley. Late 50s, 5'10", 210 pounds of weathered muscle and scar tissue. Vietnam-era SEAL trident on his chest, beard more gray than black, eyes that had seen too much to find this funny. He sat perfectly still in the back row, watching not Hendricks, but Natasha. Watching how she moved, how she stood. Something's wrong, Riley thought. The economy of motion. The way her eyes had tracked the room when she first entered. Quick sweep, threat assessment pattern, checking exits and sight lines. That's not a janitor. That's an operator. But he said nothing. Not his place to interrupt an admiral, even when the admiral was being an ass. Hendricks wasn't finished. No, seriously, I'm curious. What's your MOS, sweetheart? Advanced toilet? Toilet bowl reconnaissance? He turned to his audience, playing to them now. Maybe her call sign is Mop 1 Actual. Vance joined in, standing for better effect. I'm sure she has very important contributions about proper bleach ratios, critical to national security. A young petty officer in the 4th row, Devin Mills, 24 years old, fresh-faced analyst with more brains than political sense, shifted uncomfortably, started to raise his hand, thought better of it, lowered it. Natasha reached the corner of the room, turned her mop bucket with practiced efficiency. The wheels made a soft scraping sound against the concrete. In the momentary quiet, an overhead announcement crackled. Attention, Kazakh delegation arriving at Building 7 for joint operations briefing. The announcement repeated in Russian. Natasha's head turned a fraction of an inch toward the speaker. Automatic recognition, native comprehension. She caught herself within half a second, kept her eyes down, but the reflex had happened. Riley saw it. His eyes narrowed. Hendricks was still performing. Tell you what, since you're so quiet, let me ask something easier. What's your service record? You prior military? Got some secret special forces background we should know about? He grinned at his own joke. The room waited, phones recording, expecting either fearful silence or stammered excuse. Natasha stopped mopping, set the handle against the bucket with deliberate care. 4 seconds of absolute stillness. Then she picked up the bucket and continued toward the exit. Movements calm, unhurried. Not fleeing, completing her assigned task. The laughter swelled again, louder now. Hendricks had won his moment. Vance called after her. Don't forget to sign out with security. We have protocols, even for janitorial staff. Natasha reached the door, paused with her hand on the push bar. For just an instant, her fingers positioned themselves wrong. Not a cleaning woman's tentative touch, but a tactical entry grip. Fingers aligned for door breach, weight ready to drive forward. Riley caught that too. Then she adjusted, pushed the door open normally, and disappeared into the hallway. The door closed with a pneumatic hiss. The briefing room settled back into professional mode. Hendricks returned to his PowerPoint. As I was saying, Russian intelligence assets are often in positions of seeming insignificance. The key is recognizing patterns that don't fit. In the back row, Master Chief Riley pulled out his phone, typed a quick message to base security. Need personnel file on civilian janitorial staff, female, working intel building. Caucasian, early 30s, brown hair. Something's off. The response came back 90 seconds later. Tasha Brennan. Hired 6 weeks ago through contracted services. Background check clean. Need more specifics? Riley stared at his phone. 6 weeks. She'd been here 6 weeks, and he'd never noticed her before today. That was professional-grade invisibility. You didn't get that from a YouTube tutorial on how to blend in. He typed back. What level background check? Standard civilian. Credit, criminal, references. Not sufficient, not even close. Not for someone with access to classified spaces, even as cleaning staff. Riley looked toward the door she'd exited through. Something was very wrong here. And in about 20 minutes, everyone in this room was going to find out exactly how wrong. The briefing continued for another 12 minutes before Commander Vance decided she wasn't finished. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with deliberate volume. "Admiral, if I may, I think we should address a security concern." Hendricks paused mid-sentence about Russian cyber capabilities. "Go ahead, Commander." "That cleaning woman. She's been in this room during classified briefings 3 times this week. I've seen her." Vance projected her voice for maximum effect. "We've had issues before with contracted staff taking photographs of materials left on tables. Maybe we should verify she's not carrying a phone or camera." The British liaison, Captain Nigel Pembroke, offered an uncomfortable laugh. "Bit paranoid, aren't we? Though I suppose with Russian cleaning ladies in American bases, one can never be too careful." The room's energy shifted. What had been casual mockery now carried an edge of accusation. Lieutenant Commander Culligan stood, stretched lazily. "I'll go check on her. Make sure she's not photographing our coffee cups." He headed toward the door, and Vance followed. 3 other officers joined them, including a Marine captain who'd been silent throughout. Master Chief Riley remained seated but alert. This was escalating badly. They found Natasha in the adjacent hallway, cleaning the water fountain near the classified materials room. Her back was to them, coveralls slightly damp from work, that same measured efficiency in every movement. "Hey," Culligan called out. "Got a minute?" Natasha straightened, turned slowly. Her expression was neutral, professional. "Yes, sir. Do you need something cleaned?" "Need to see your phone," Vance said flatly. "Security protocol. You've been in classified spaces." "My phone is in my locker, ma'am. Staff aren't permitted to carry personal electronics during shift." "Convenient answer." Vance stepped closer. "What about cameras, recording devices?" "I don't have any, ma'am." Culligan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You know, you seem pretty calm for someone being accused of potential espionage." "I'm not doing anything wrong, sir." "Then you won't mind answering some questions." Vance was enjoying this now. "Where'd you work before here?" "Various contract positions, ma'am. It's all in my employment file." "Humor me. What kind of positions?" Natasha paused for exactly 2 seconds, calculating. "Facilities maintenance, different locations." "Military locations?" "Some were on military contracts, yes, ma'am." The Marine captain, a tall man named Ortiz, spoke up. "You prior service?" "No, sir." "Family military?" "My records are available through HR, sir." Vance's eyes narrowed. That's not an answer. Before Natasha could respond, Culligan pushed off the wall and grabbed a technical manual from the nearby table. FM 3-05.222, Special Forces Sniper Training and Employment, classified material marked clearly on the cover. He held it carelessly, then accidentally let it slip from his fingers. The manual fell at an angle that would strike Natasha directly in the face. Her hand moved. Not a flinch, not a defensive wave. A precise intercept. Fingers finding the manual's center of gravity mid-flight, arresting its momentum with minimal effort, rotating it upright in a single fluid motion. Muscle memory from thousands of repetitions with objects far more dangerous than books. She placed it on the table, cover down, classification marking hidden. Another trained response. The hallway went silent for 3 seconds. "Lucky catch," Culligan said, but his voice had changed, less confident. "My nephew plays baseball," Vance added quickly. "Fast reflexes don't mean anything." Master Chief Riley had followed them into the hallway. He'd seen the catch, seen the precision. That wasn't luck. That was hours of training, recognizing falling objects as potential threats and neutralizing them efficiently. "Commander," Riley said quietly, "maybe we should—" "Master Chief, I don't recall requesting your input," Vance snapped. A young petty officer appeared at the end of the hallway, Devin Mills, the analyst from the briefing. He carried a tablet, looked uncertain about whether he should be there. Vance kicked Natasha's mop bucket, not hard, just enough to send it tipping, dirty water flooding across the polished floor toward a lower table stacked with classified documents about Russian satellite capabilities. Natasha moved like water, 3 steps, inhumanly fast, covering the distance before the spreading pool could reach the papers. She grabbed the stack, but didn't just grab it. Her hands automatically sorted as she lifted. Red-bordered folders on top, then orange, then blue. Classification level order. Top secret, above confidential. She'd organized them by security markings without looking at the covers. Vance stared at the stacked documents in Natasha's hands. "How did you know?" She stopped herself. "You got lucky." Again. But her voice had lost its conviction. Natasha set the documents on a higher table, away from the water. Then she knelt and began soaking up the spill with rags from her cart, movements mechanical, refusing to engage. Petty Officer Mills had been watching from his position near the corner. "Ma'am," he said hesitantly to Vance, "maybe we should just let her finish her work." "Did I ask for your input, Petty Officer?" Vance's face flushed. "Maybe you'd like to join her. We can get you some coveralls." Mills backed down immediately, but his eyes stayed on Natasha. Something was computing behind his analyst's brain. Culligan moved to the weapons display case mounted on the hallway wall, part of the building's military heritage exhibit. Inside sat various firearms, an M4 carbine, an HK-417, a vintage M16A1, a Sig Sauer pistol, all deactivated for display purposes, but authentic. "You recognized that manual pretty quick," Culligan said, tapping the glass. "Special Forces sniper training. Most people wouldn't know what FM3-05222 contains." Natasha kept cleaning. "The number was visible on the spine, sir." "But you knew it was sniper training material." "Lucky guess, sir." A young ensign walking past the group paused, curious about the gathering. He looked at the display case. "Is that the HK-416? Natasha didn't look up, but her mouth moved before her brain could stop it. HK-417, different caliber, 7.62 versus 5.56, heavier recoil spring. The hallway froze. 5 people stared at her. She realized her mistake immediately, returned to scrubbing the floor with increased focus. "How," Vance said slowly, "does a janitor know weapon specifications?" "I read about military equipment online." "Be specific. Where online?" "Various defense websites, ma'am." Culligan's expression had shifted completely. The smirk was gone. "The HK-417 isn't widely publicized. Most people confuse it with the 416. And that detail about the recoil spring, that's armorer-level knowledge." Master Chief Riley stepped forward. "Sir, maybe we should verify her credentials before this continues." "Verify what?" Hendrick's voice came from behind them. The Admiral had left the briefing, followed by the remaining attendees. The hallway was now packed with over 60 people. But even Hendrick sounded less certain now. Vance pointed at the weapons case. "She just identified an HK-417 by caliber and internal components, sir. That's not Google knowledge." Hendricks studied Natasha, who remained kneeling on the floor, rag in hand, water pooling around her knees. "Stand up." She stood, slowly, weight distribution perfect, balance centered. Fighter's stance disguised as civilian posture. Riley saw it, the way her feet positioned shoulder-width apart, how her hands stayed loose at her sides, ready, the slight angle of her body that kept everyone in peripheral vision. "You've handled weapons before," Hendrick stated. "No, sir. Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying, sir. I've never been issued a weapon." Technically true, Riley realized, never been issued an American weapon. Hendricks made a decision. "Fine, since you seem so knowledgeable about our equipment, let's have a demonstration." He pointed at the display case. "Field strip the HK-417. If you can do it in under 2 minutes, I'll personally apologize for this whole situation. If you can't, we call base security and investigate exactly how a janitor knows classified weapon specifications." Natasha looked at the case, at Hendricks, at the 60-plus people now recording on their phones. "Sir, that's not—" "Not what? Not fair? You're the one who claimed expertise." "I didn't claim anything, sir." "You identified the weapon. You knew internal components. Either prove it wasn't just memorized facts or explain where you learned information that civilians shouldn't have." 4 seconds of silence. "I'll need the case key, sir." Hendricks smiled coldly. "I'm sure someone will find it. Eventually." Natasha stared at the locked display case for 3 seconds. Then she reached up and removed a single strand of wire from her hair bun. Thin, strong, the kind that could hold hair or pick locks or cut through flesh if applied correctly. Master Chief Riley's eyes widened. "That's piano wire," he muttered. "Why does a janitor carry piano wire in her hair?" No one answered him. Everyone was watching Natasha's hands. She inserted the wire into the display case lock, felt for the pins with practiced precision. Her fingers moved with the confidence of someone who'd opened far more complex locks under far worse conditions. 11 seconds later, the case clicked open. "Okay, that's—" Culligan started, then stopped. "Many people know how to pick locks," Vance added weakly. "I've seen them." But her face had gone pale. Natasha opened the case, removed the HK-417 with both hands. Her first action was automatic. Pull the charging handle, visually and physically check the chamber. Empty. Safe. The movement was so ingrained she didn't realize she'd done it until she saw Riley's expression change. Civilians don't chamber check weapons. They don't know to. She set the rifle on the nearest table. The crowd pressed closer, phones up, recording from multiple angles. Someone was live streaming this to the base network. The audience had grown to over 80 people, spilling out of the adjacent offices. "Clock starts now," Hendricks said, pulling out his phone to time her. Natasha's hands moved. The disassembly was textbook perfect. If the textbook was written for advanced armorers. Takedown pin rotated. Upper receiver separated from lower. Bolt carrier group extracted with the smooth pull of someone who'd done this in complete darkness, in sandstorms, in the back of moving vehicles. "Upper receiver," she said quietly, setting it down. "Bolt carrier group, gas piston system. This one's short stroke, modified from standard Heckler & Koch specification." Culligan leaned in. "That's not standard configuration. How did you—" "Gas block is aftermarket," she continued, ignoring him. "Geiselay trigger group, not factory. Suppressor mount is third-party, probably Surfire based on the thread pattern." She was identifying custom modifications, components that weren't in any manual, details you only knew from hands-on experience with weapon builds. Master Chief Riley pulled out his phone, started timing independently. Natasha continued the field strip with mechanical efficiency. Each part placed in order. Charging handle, buffer spring, firing pin. Her fingers found every component without hesitation, despite this being a Frankengun, a training weapon cobbled together from multiple sources with non-standard pins. She should have struggled. The pins were different sizes, positioned slightly wrong. This weapon was deliberately difficult to disassemble quickly. She didn't even slow down. 1 minute, 47 seconds. Complete field strip. The hallway was silent, except for the clicking of phone cameras. "Now reassemble," Hendricks said. His voice had lost his mocking edge. She rebuilt the weapon in reverse order. Every pin aligned, every spring seated, every component functioning. At 1 minute 52 seconds, she charged the weapon, performed a function check. Dry fired at the floor, magazine well tested with an empty magazine someone handed her. The magazine seated smoothly, ejected cleanly. She safed the weapon and placed it on the table. 2 minutes, 8 seconds, total. Both directions. The British Captain Pembroke whispered, "Bloody hell." The Australian liaison was texting rapidly on his phone, not even watching anymore. He'd seen enough. Petty Officer Mills was reviewing the video he'd recorded, cross-referencing something on his tablet. His face had gone very still. Hendricks stared at the disassembled and reassembled weapon. You've done this before." Yes, sir. Where? When? I'm not authorized to discuss previous employment without proper clearance verification. That phrase hung in the air. Previous employment. Not jobs, not work history. Employment with clearance requirements. Commander Vance found her voice. Previous employment doing what exactly? I can't answer that, ma'am. Can't or won't? Both, ma'am. Culligan stepped between them. Admiral, this doesn't make sense. That weapon has custom parts. She identified them by touch. That's not civilian knowledge. Maybe she worked at a gun range, someone offered from the crowd. Gun ranges don't install Geisela trigger groups, Riley said flatly. That's competition-level modification, or military armorer work. Hendricks made a decision born of ego and desperation. The range. Outdoor facility, 50 meters, moving targets. SEAL qualification standard. Let's see if this was skill or memorization. Sir, that's not necessary, Culligan began. It's not what, Commander? Not fair? She's the one demonstrating classified knowledge. Hendricks pointed at Natasha. You want to explain yourself, or you want to prove you're not just some savant who memorized Wikipedia? Natasha looked at him with those gray-green eyes that had watched men die, that had identified traitors, that had stared down FSB interrogators. I need to inform you that discharging weapons requires specific authorization and I'm a Rear Admiral. I am the authorization. Range. Now. His face was red. Unless you'd like to admit you got lucky with the weapon strip. The crowd was already moving toward the doors leading to the outdoor range. This had become entertainment, a spectacle, someone's humiliation or validation, broadcast live across the base network. Natasha followed, silent. The outdoor range was standard military configuration, 50 meters, 8 steel silhouette targets on automated lateral tracks, observation deck elevated for safety. Wind was blowing 8 knots from the northwest, temperature 72 degrees. She noted these factors automatically, calculating ballistic adjustments before she consciously decided to. The observation deck filled rapidly. Over 90 people now, including personnel who'd heard about the incident and came specifically to watch. Base security had arrived, standing to the side, uncertain whether to intervene. An armorer brought out the HK-417, now loaded with 20 rounds of 7.62 NATO ammunition. Standard ball ammunition, nothing special. Qualification standard, Hendricks announced to the crowd. 20 rounds, 50 meters, moving targets at 2 meters per second lateral. Minimum passing score is 17 hits, 85%. She shoots standing, unsupported, no bench rest. That was harder than standard qualification, which allowed prone or supported positions. Hendricks was stacking conditions against her. Culligan pulled Hendricks aside. Sir, if she actually fires expert level, we're going to have much bigger questions. Then we'll get answers, Commander. Natasha accepted the weapon, performed another chamber check, loaded, round visible, safety on. Her hands found the rifle's balance point instantly. She adjusted the rear sight 2 clicks right without being told wind speed or direction. She'd felt the breeze, calculated the drift. She took position at the firing line, standing unsupported, weaver stance, feet shoulder width, slight forward lean, arms creating a triangle of support. Old school technique that modern shooters had abandoned for more dynamic stances. Master Chief Riley noticed. They don't teach weaver anymore, haven't for 15 years. Except in, he stopped himself, realization dawning. The range officer called out, targets active, commence firing when ready. The steel silhouettes began their programmed movement, lateral motion, left to right and back, random speed variations. Natasha's breathing slowed. Her trigger finger rested outside the guard. She tracked the first target for 1 second, learning its pattern. Then she fired. The first shot took the target's center mass. The second hit before the first target finished ringing. She was firing between heartbeats, each shot precisely timed, leading the targets perfectly for wind and movement. 5 shots, 5 hits, perfect grouping. The crowd had gone quiet. She continued. Controlled pairs now. 2 shots per target, transitioning smoothly. Her breathing never changed. The rifle was an extension of her body, moving with fluid economy. 15 shots. 15 hits. She's not shooting where they are, Riley said to no one in particular. She's shooting where they'll be. That's predictive targeting. That's thousands of rounds downrange. 20 shots. 34 seconds total. 20 hits. Perfect score. Natasha safed the weapon, ejected the magazine, locked the bolt back, placed it on the table for the range officer to clear. Then she turned to face Admiral Hendricks. The observation deck was completely silent, except for wind and distant base traffic. Hendricks's face had gone from red to white. You've obviously done this before. Yes, sir. Where? When? I'm not authorized to. Don't give me that line again. His voice cracked with frustration. You just shot a perfect SEAL qualification score in half the time, standing unsupported? Explain yourself. I can't, sir. Commander Vance stepped forward. Ward, hand instinctively near her sidearm. This is a security threat. She's clearly had military training, foreign or domestic, and she's been operating on this base under false pretenses. I haven't lied about anything, ma'am. Then tell us the truth. I'm not authorized to discuss operational details without proper clearance and— Operational details, Culligan interrupted. What operations? Who do you work for? Natasha went silent. She'd said too much. Petty Officer Mills was staring at his tablet, face pale. He'd found something. Master Chief Riley approached Natasha slowly. Let me see your arm. Sir? Your left arm. I saw something during your movement. Let me see it. Master Chief, I don't. That wasn't a request. She hesitated, then slowly rolled up her left coverall sleeve. The tattoo was visible, from wrist to mid-forearm. Cyrillic text in black ink. Below it, coordinates. Below that, dates, 2010-2018. The observation deck erupted in confused voices. Riley stared at the text. He'd done 3 tours in Eastern Europe. He could read basic Russian. That's a memorial tattoo, he said quietly. Military memorial. Russian military. Every eye locked on Natasha. Hendricks's voice was barely controlled. Someone get base security, now! 2 base security personnel arrived within 90 seconds, hands near sidearms, uncertain what they were walking into. The observation deck had become a pressure cooker of confused voices, phones recording, officers demanding explanations. Natasha stood perfectly still at the firing line, left sleeve still rolled up, tattoo visible to everyone. Her expression remained neutral, but Master Chief Riley noticed the slight dilation of her pupils. She was preparing for something, running calculations. Secure her, Hendricks ordered. No one leaves until we sort this out. The security personnel hesitated. Sir, what exactly are the charges? Suspected espionage, unauthorized access to classified materials, false identity. Pick one. Commander Vance stepped forward. That tattoo is Russian military. The dates go back to 2010. She's been lying about everything. Natasha finally spoke. I need to speak with legal counsel. Not a lawyer. Legal counsel. Military phrasing again. Lieutenant Commander Culligan moved closer to examine the tattoo without touching her. Those coordinates, what do they mark? Natasha said nothing. Petty Officer Mills looked up from his tablet, face pale. Sir, I think I know what they mark. Those coordinates are Moscow. Specifically, they're near Lubyanka Square. The name hit like a physical blow. Lubyanka, former KGB headquarters, current FSB headquarters. FSB? Hendricks's voice rose an octave. You're telling me we have a Russian intelligence officer working on a U.S. naval base? I didn't say that, sir, Mills backtracked quickly. I just identified the coordinates. But the damage was done. The crowd's energy shifted from confusion to hostility. Over 100 people now surrounded the range, and phones were broadcasting this across the base network in real time. Master Chief Riley raised his voice. Everyone, calm down. We don't know what— We know she's Russian military, Vance interrupted. We know she infiltrated this base under false identity. We know she has advanced weapons training and classified technical knowledge. What else do we need to know? A Marine captain pushed forward. Sir, recommend immediate detention and counterintelligence investigation. Natasha's breathing remained controlled, but Riley saw her weight shift fractionally. If this turned physical, she was positioning to move. And given what he just witnessed with that rifle, he didn't want to see what she could do in close quarters. Stand down, Riley said quietly to her. Don't make this worse. She met his eyes. Master Chief, I'm not resisting, but I am asserting my right to legal counsel before answering questions. You don't have rights, Hendricks snapped. You're not military. You're a foreign national with... I'm a U.S. person with rights under the Constitution, sir, and I'm requesting counsel. The precision of that phrasing struck Riley. U.S. person. That was legal terminology, immigration law. She knew exactly what protections she had. Before Hendricks could respond, a black SUV pulled up to the range entrance, moving fast. It stopped 30 feet away, and a woman emerged from the passenger side. Vice Admiral Rebecca Strand. The observation deck went silent. Strand wasn't supposed to be on this base today. Someone had called her. Someone with enough authority to pull a vice admiral from whatever she'd been doing. Strand was 5'8", mid-50s, steel gray hair, combat action ribbon visible among her decorations. Her expression as she surveyed the scene was carved from ice. Would someone, she said with parade ground clarity, like to explain why a training range looks like a circus? Hendricks stepped forward. Ma'am, we have a security situation. This civilian employee has demonstrated classified knowledge, refused to explain her background, and has what appears to be Russian military tattoos. I didn't ask you, Admiral. Strand's voice could cut steel. I asked someone who knows what's actually happening. Master Chief Riley stepped forward. Ma'am, Master Chief Petty Officer James Riley. The individual in question completed SEAL standard weapon qualifications, demonstrated advanced technical knowledge of modified weapon systems, and has memorial tattoo with Russian text and dates spanning 2010 to 2018. She's requested legal counsel using specific constitutional terminology. Strand looked at Natasha for the first time. Their eyes met for 3 seconds. Something passed between them. Recognition? Assessment? Riley couldn't tell, but the air pressure changed. Your name, Strand said. Natasha hesitated for exactly 2 seconds, calculation happening behind those gray-green eyes. Then, Natasha Volkov, ma'am. Not Tasha Brennan. Her real name, or at least a different name. Hendricks exploded. See? False identity. Volkov, that's Russian. Strand ignored him. Captain Ford, she said to her aide, a fit man in his 40s carrying a tablet. Get me her personnel file, the real one. Ford stepped away, phone to his ear, voice too low to hear. Commander Vance pressed forward. Ma'am, with respect, she clearly has Russian military background and has been operating on a U.S. naval base with access to classified facilities. This is textbook espionage. Commander, be quiet. Vance's mouth snapped shut. Culligan tried. Ma'am, she won't explain where she learned. Lieutenant Commander, you too. Both of you, silent, now. The observation deck was frozen. Over 100 personnel, phones still recording, watching a vice admiral take control of a situation spinning out of control. Ford returned, whispered something to Strand. Her expression didn't change, but her posture shifted microscopically, shoulders back, guard up. Admiral Hendricks, clear this range. Everyone except command-level personnel and Master Chief Riley, immediately. Ma'am, I don't think... That wasn't a request. Clear this range. Hendricks's face purpled, but he couldn't disobey a direct order from a superior officer. He turned to the crowd. Everyone out. Now. Delete any recordings. That's an order. No one moved to delete anything. Several people were still live streaming, but they began filing off the observation deck, reluctant to leave the drama. Petty Officer Mills tried to stay. Ma'am, I think I know who she— Especially you, petty officer. If you know, you definitely need to leave. Mills hesitated, then departed, tablet clutched to his chest. 5 minutes later, the range was empty, except for 7 people. Vice Admiral Strand, Rear Admiral Hendricks, Commander Vance, Lieutenant Commander Culligan, Master Chief Riley, Captain Ford, and Natasha Volkov. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of gun oil and cordite from the range. Hendricks tried to assert control. Ma'am, before we proceed, I believe we need definitive proof of her claims. She hasn't made any claims, Natasha interrupted quietly. Sir, with respect, I've answered exactly what I was authorized to answer. Authorized by whom? I can't say, sir. Can't or won't? Both. Hendricks turned to Strand. Ma'am, she's been evasive from the beginning. I recommend immediate detention for counterintelligence review. Admiral Hendricks. Strand's voice was surgical. How did this situation start? She was in a classified briefing room during— How did this situation start? Hendricks stopped, swallowed. I made a comment about her position. What kind of comment? Silence. What kind of comment, Admiral? I asked her opinion on intelligence matters, as a joke. A joke. Strand let the word hang. And then? She demonstrated knowledge she shouldn't have, so I requested verification of her capabilities. You requested, or you challenged her publicly? More silence. Strand turned to Natasha. Miss Volkov, the Admiral asked for your service record earlier, as a joke. I'm asking now, formally, and I have the clearance to hear the answer. She stepped closer, voice dropping. What is your current operational status, and who is your reporting authority? 4 seconds of silence. Then Natasha spoke. In fluent Russian, heavy FSB accent, words precise and clipped. Major Natalia Volkov, FSB 2nd Directorate. Defector under CIA protection. Codename Nightjar. No one moved. Culligan's face went white. What did she just— Strand responded, also in Russian. When did you defect? Natasha replied in the same language. November 2018. Operation Mirror. Strand switched to English, looking at the shocked officers. For those who don't speak Russian, and I suggest you all learn at least basic phrases if you're in intelligence, Major Volkov just identified herself as former FSB counterintelligence, CIA-protected defector since 2018, operational codename Nightjar. No one moved. Culligan's face went white. What did she just— Strand responded, also in Russian. When did you defect? Natasha replied in the same language. November 2018. Operation Mirror. Strand switched to English, looking at the shocked officers. For those who don't speak Russian, and I suggest you all learn at least basic phrases if you're in intelligence, Major Volkov just identified herself as former FSB counterintelligence, CIA-protected defector since 2018, operational codename Nightjar. Master Chief Riley took a step back, actually physically retreated. Commander Vance's hand dropped from her sidearm. FSB, as in Russian Federal Security Service? Correct. As in their version of FBI and CIA combined? Correct. Culligan looked like he'd been punched. And she's been here, doing what exactly? Captain Ford held up his tablet. Ma'am, CIA confirms. Nightjar is current asset, level 5 clearance, TSCI compartmented access, active protective detail, which she apparently waived, and— he paused. Current assignment is embedded security assessment for upcoming high-value defector arrival. She's been here 6 weeks, conducting advance reconnaissance. The implications hit like falling concrete. She wasn't hiding, she was working, as a janitor, testing base security by seeing what someone in that position could access. And these officers had just humiliated a CIA asset in front of 100 people with phones. Hendricks' voice was barely a whisper. How were we supposed to know? Master Chief Riley figured it out by how she held a mop, Strand said coldly. Perhaps work on your observational skills. She turned to Natasha. Major Volkov, we need to debrief what operational security has been compromised by this incident. Yes, ma'am. My cover is completely burned. The defector won't come if he hears about this. He'll assume facility is compromised. How many people witnessed? Over 100, ma'am. Multiple live streams to base network. By now, half the installation knows there's a Russian-speaking former FSB officer here. Strand looked at Hendricks. My office, 1 hour. Bring legal counsel. Ma'am. 1 hour, Admiral. Dismissed. The secure briefing facility was soundproofed, windowless, designed for conversations that couldn't leak. 70 minutes after the range incident, 7 people sat around the conference table. Vice Admiral Strand at the head, Rear Admiral Hendricks with a JAG attorney beside him, Commander Vance with her own legal counsel, Lieutenant Commander Culligan, Master Chief Riley, Natasha Volkov, and a new arrival, Special Agent William Foster from CIA. Foster was 45, gray suit, calm demeanor, the kind of face that disappeared in crowds. He'd driven from San Diego in record time after receiving Strand's call. Now he placed a tablet on the table and entered a 12-digit authorization code. The screen displayed, classified, TSSCI, compartmented access, eyes only. A biographical file appeared, photo of Natasha, but younger, wearing Russian military uniform. Foster began reading. Volkov, Natalia Alexandrovna, born Moscow, Russian Federation, 1992. FSB Academy graduate 2010, top 3% of class. Assigned FSB Second Directorate, Counterintelligence Division, 2010 through 2018. Specialization, Western intelligence penetration, sleeper cell identification, technical surveillance. Hendricks stared at the screen. She was FSB. She was the enemy. She was FSB, Foster corrected, past tense. She's been ours for 6 years. Foster continued. Operational assignments included Syria 2015 to 2016, Ukraine 2017, United States 2018. Defection date November 14th, Istanbul, Turkey. Current status CIA Protected Asset, Special Activities Division Consultant. Clearance level, TSSCI, Level 5, FISA authorized. Commander Vance leaned forward. Her FSB career, what did that involve? 47 successful counterintelligence operations, exposure of 12 NATO intelligence assets operating in Russia, direct involvement in Syrian theater operations supporting Russian military intelligence collection. Culligan's voice was flat. And we're trusting her why exactly? Foster looked at Natasha, nodded permission. She spoke, accent present but controlled. November 2018, I was assigned to identify CIA network in Moscow. During investigation, I discovered FSB officers selling NATO troop movement intelligence to Hezbollah, not for ideology, for money, intelligence that got people killed. Her hands remained flat on the table, perfectly still. His name was Colonel Dmitry Kozlov, my commanding officer. He'd been selling information for 3 years. Bank transfers, meeting recordings, dead drop documentation. I had proof of everything. What happened when you reported it? Strand asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. I reported through proper FSB channels. Within 48 hours, I received reassignment orders to Lubyanka basement. That's not where you go for promotion. That's where you disappear. Master Chief Riley had seen enough intelligence operations to fill in the blanks. So you ran. I had 72 hours before the transfer. I took my evidence and walked into the U.S. Embassy in Istanbul during a joint security conference, requested asylum, provided proof of Kozlov's network and names of 23 Russian sleeper agents in NATO countries as good faith. Foster took over. We verified everything over 6 weeks. Every name checked out. We rolled up the network over 6 months, quietly, so FSB wouldn't know the source immediately. Kozlov was arrested by FSB themselves once we leaked evidence through back channels. They couldn't ignore it. He's currently serving 25 years in Black Dolphin Prison. Vance's JAG attorney spoke up. What did defection cost her personally? Natasha's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened fractionally against the table. Everything. My family cannot contact me. FSB monitors them constantly. My younger brother Alexei was questioned for 6 weeks. My mother had her pension suspended for 8 months. Friends I trained with for 8 years won't speak my name. I'm dead to everyone I knew for the first 26 years of my life. Master Chief Riley asked the question quietly. The tattoo, the memorial, who didn't return? 5 seconds of silence. My FSB training class, 24 cadets started in 2010. By 2018, 7 were dead. 3 in Syria, 2 in Ukraine, 1 in Chechnya, 1 suicide after field operation went wrong. The tattoo covers all of them. The coordinates are where we graduated. The dates are service years. Hendricks found his voice. And you're here because… Foster pulled up another document. Major Volkov is conducting security assessment in advance of high-value defector arrival. Russian GRU colonel bringing information on sleeper networks embedded in U.S. military and defense contractors. He's extremely paranoid, won't defect unless facility security is proven airtight. So we embedded Major Volkov 6 weeks ago to test access points from lowest security clearance position possible. Strand leaned back. And what did your assessment find, Major? Natasha pulled a small notebook from her coverall pocket. Standard commercial notebook, nothing special. She opened it to reveal pages of handwritten notes in Russian shorthand. In 6 weeks, I accessed 14 classified areas without escort. I photographed 37 documents left unsecured in offices after hours. I recorded 8 conversations about operational deployments in common areas. I identified 3 personnel with security vulnerabilities: gambling debts, undisclosed foreign contacts, substance abuse indicators. She flipped pages. Specific failures. Janitors are not escorted in SCIF facilities after 1900 hours. I accessed the satellite intelligence briefing room 4 times, once staying for 20 minutes while analysts worked around me. Combination locks on auxiliary weapon storage are factory default codes. No one changed them after installation. Classified waste is placed in burn bags but sits in hallways for up to 3 hours before incineration pickup. I photographed contents of 6 burn bags. Hendricks looked physically ill. Conference room 6 has acoustics that carry conversations into ventilation system. I heard details of SEAL team training rotation schedules while cleaning ductwork. Building 7 has exterior windows that allow visual surveillance of classification markings on documents from 200 meters with basic optics. Your Tempest shielding in the new Intel wing has gaps. I detected electromagnetic emissions from 3 supposedly secured computers. Commander Vance stared at her notebook. You documented all of this? That was my assignment, ma'am. Find weaknesses before hostile intelligence services do. Foster added. For the record, Major Volkov's defection and subsequent intelligence contribution earned her the CIA Distinguished Intelligence Cross. She can never display it publicly because acknowledging her CIA employment would endanger remaining assets in Russia and compromise ongoing operations. He pulled up another file. Since 2018, she's participated in 12 joint operations, trained 40 intelligence officers in Russian counterintelligence tactics, and provided testimony that secured 6 federal espionage convictions. She's fluent in Russian, English, Arabic, Farsi, Ukrainian, Turkish, and German. Combat experience includes Syria 2015, shrapnel wound from IED during Aleppo operations. Ukraine 2017, shot twice during compromised exfiltration in Donetsk, both documented in her medical file. Culligan's voice was quiet. How were we supposed to know any of this? Master Chief Riley spoke before anyone else could. I knew something was wrong in 5 minutes, sir. The words hung in the air. An enlisted man had spotted what officers missed. Strand stood. Let me be clear about what happened today. Admiral Hendricks, you publicly humiliated a CIA asset, compromised her operational cover, and potentially endangered an intelligence operation worth millions in collection value. Commander Vance, Lieutenant Commander Culligan, you participated enthusiastically. Hendricks tried to mount a defense. Ma'am, her cover was as a janitor. We received no notification of CIA presence. That's the definition of cover, Admiral, Foster interrupted. You're not supposed to be notified. Strand continued. 80-plus personnel with phones witnessed this incident. Multiple recordings exist and were broadcast across base network. By now, thousands of people know there's a Russian-speaking former FSB officer working here under assumed identity. Her cover is completely destroyed. Natasha spoke. The defector, codenamed Starling, won't come now. If he hears about this incident through his intelligence network, and he will because GRU maintains active collection on U.S. military bases, he'll assume facility is compromised. He'll vanish and will lose access to intelligence on 40 Russian officers currently embedded in U.S. military support infrastructure. Foster nodded. Those networks stay active. People die. Simple equation. Hendrix's JAG attorney tried another angle. Admiral Hendrix had no way to know her status. His actions, while regrettable, were based on reasonable assumptions. Reasonable? Strand's voice could freeze nitrogen. He publicly mocked a subordinate. Cover or not, she was facility personnel. That alone violates every conduct standard we have. She turned to the JAG officers. Video evidence exists. Multiple angles. Clear audio of every comment. 34 minutes of documented harassment. This isn't ambiguous. Hendrix slumped in his chair. His attorney whispered something. Hendrix shook his head, defeated. Commander Vance tried to speak. Ma'am, I made a mistake, but this is career-ending for something that started as what, Commander? Harmless fun? Explain the harmless part of accusing someone of espionage because you decided they were beneath you. Vance had no answer. Culligan spoke. I'm a SEAL, ma'am. We have culture. We test people. You thought wrong.
Wrong, Riley said. SEAL culture is testing teammates. She wasn't your teammate. She was a janitor you decided to humiliate because you could. Strand looked at each officer in turn. This conversation will continue in formal proceedings. But understand, operational security wasn't breached by Major Volkov maintaining her cover. It was breached by personnel who couldn't imagine someone in coveralls might be more qualified than they are. She stood. Major Volkov, you're released from this debrief. We'll discuss operational next steps after I address command failure. Natasha stood, nodded professionally. As she turned to leave, Hendrix found his voice. Wait, I apologize for everything that... Natasha turned back. Apology noted, Admiral. But you didn't apologize when it was just you and me. You're apologizing now because you know who I am. That tells me everything about what you actually regret. She walked out. 4 seconds of silence. Master Chief Riley, barely audible. Damn. 24 hours after the range incident, formal proceedings convened in the Admiral's conference room. 1000 hours, windows covered for security, armed guards at the door. The attendees had grown. Vice Admiral Strand, Rear Admiral Hendrix with his JAG attorney, Commander Vance with separate legal counsel, Lieutenant Commander Culligan, Master Chief Riley, Petty Officer Mills called as witness, Natasha Volkov, CIA Liaison Foster, and a Navy JAG captain named Richardson who would read official findings. Richardson stood, manila folder in hand, reading with the flat affect of someone who'd prosecuted hundreds of cases. Formal inquiry into security breach and conduct violations. Case number 2024-SI-0847. Charges under review. Failure to maintain operational security protocols, conduct unbecoming an officer, unauthorized disclosure of classified personnel information, compromise of intelligence operation. He looked up. Evidence includes video documentation from 47 separate phones, 12 live stream recordings broadcast to base network, and witness testimony from 83 personnel. Hendrix's attorney spoke first. Captain, Admiral Hendrix had no knowledge of Major Volkov's operational status. His actions, while regrettable in hindsight, were based on observable circumstances and reasonable command discretion. Strand's expression could etch glass. Reasonable? He publicly mocked facility personnel for 34 minutes. That violates conduct standards regardless of who she actually was. Richardson pulled up video on the conference room screen. Multiple angles compiled into single timeline. Audio clear. Hendricks' voice. "What's your call sign, sweetheart? Mop 1 actual?" Laughter from the crowd. Timestamp visible, 1437 hours. Vance's voice. "Maybe we should check her phone for classified material." More footage. Culligan knocking the manual toward Natasha's face. Her impossible catch. The crowd's reaction shifting from amusement to confusion. The field strip. The range qualification. The tattoo reveal. All documented from multiple perspectives. Richardson paused the video. This footage has been viewed by 247 base personnel as of 0800 this morning. 12 copies were shared to personal devices before order came down to delete. 3 were uploaded to private social media before being caught and removed. Foster leaned forward. "The operational damage is catastrophic. Starling, the defector we were preparing for, has postponed indefinitely. His handler reported he's spooked by security breach. We've lost access to intelligence on Russian sleeper networks that took 3 years to develop." Hendricks found his voice. "How could I have known? She was listed as contracted janitorial staff. There was no flag in the system." "That's the point of operational cover," Foster said with barely controlled frustration. "If there was a flag, it wouldn't be cover." Commander Vance's attorney tried a different approach. "My client acknowledges errors in judgment, but the escalation was driven by Major Volkov's own responses. She demonstrated knowledge that raised legitimate security concerns." "She demonstrated knowledge while maintaining her cover," Strand corrected. "That's called operational discipline, something your client lacks." Richardson read from his notes. Specific violations documented. Admiral Hendricks, public ridicule of subordinate personnel, 14 instances over 34 minutes. Unauthorized weapons qualification challenge lacking proper safety protocols. Failure to verify personnel status before making operational demands. He turned a page. Commander Vance, accusation of espionage without evidence, 3 instances. Physical interference with personnel duties, 1 instance. Aggressive posturing toward facility employee, continuous throughout incident. Vance's face had gone pale. Lieutenant Commander Culligan, reckless endangerment with classified materials, 1 instance. Participation in public ridicule, 6 instances. Unauthorized challenge of unqualified personnel to weapons handling. Culligan stared at the table. Richardson closed his folder. Recommendations are as follows. Admiral Hendricks, formal reprimand in permanent record, removal as intelligence liaison coordinator, mandatory command climate training, reassignment to administrative position. Career advancement, impossible eliminated. Hendricks' attorney started to object. Hendricks put a hand on his arm, stopped him. The Admiral had seen enough courts-martial to know when the battle was lost. Commander Vance, formal reprimand, removal from Intelligence Analysis Division, reassignment to Logistics Coordination, mandatory equal opportunity and conduct training. Vance closed her eyes. Logistics was career purgatory for an intelligence officer. Lieutenant Commander Culligan, written reprimand, 90-day suspension from training operations, formal public apology required, promotion eligibility delayed 24 months. Culligan nodded slowly. He'd expected worse. Additionally, all 83 personnel who recorded or shared footage, mandatory security briefing. 12 personnel who shared videos off base, formal counseling and security clearance review. Base commander, required implementation of dignity and respect protocols across installation. Strand addressed the room. Public apologies will be conducted today. 1400 hours, same briefing room where this started. Attendance mandatory for all personnel present at original incident. She looked at Hendricks. You'll go first. 2 hours later, the briefing room was packed. 40 personnel who'd witnessed the original incident, plus another 30 who'd been ordered to attend as witnesses to accountability. Phones were collected at the door this time. No recordings permitted. Lieutenant Commander Culligan stood at the front, dress uniform immaculate, seal trident catching light. He read from prepared statement, voice steady but lacking its usual confidence. On the 18th of this month, I participated in conduct that violated Navy core values. I publicly mocked and challenged a fellow service member based on my assumptions about her position and capabilities. I was wrong. I apologized to Major Volkov and to everyone who witnessed my failure of leadership. I will use this experience to become a better officer and a better man. He stepped back. Natasha, seated in the front row in civilian professional attire, slacks, blouse, still maintaining partial cover, nodded acknowledgement. Nothing more. Commander Vance went next. Her statement was shorter, voice tight. I allowed bias and insecurity to drive unprofessional conduct. I saw Major Volkov as competition rather than colleague. I projected my own inadequacies onto someone who deserved respect. I apologize without reservation and commit to being better. She made eye contact with Natasha. Something passed between them, understanding perhaps. Vance went to her seat. Rear Admiral Hendricks stood. His uniform seemed to hang differently on him now, as if rank had physical weight that he'd lost. He didn't read from notes. Major Volkov, there is no excuse for what I did. I used my rank to humiliate you because it made me feel powerful. Because I've spent 24 years in uniform without ever doing what you've done, serving in actual danger, making actual sacrifices, facing actual enemies. Mocking you was easier than facing my own inadequacy. His voice cracked slightly. I'm sorry, truly, and I hope someone learns from my failure what I should have known from the beginning. Respect isn't about rank. It's about recognizing the humanity and capability in everyone, regardless of position. Silence filled the room for 5 seconds. Natasha stood, turned to face the assembled personnel. I accept these apologies. I've been underestimated my entire career. In FSB because I was young and female, in CIA because I'm Russian, here because I wore coveralls. This won't be the last time someone judges me incorrectly. But maybe next time, whoever does it will remember what happened here, will remember that people are rarely what they appear to be, and will choose respect first, assumptions later. She sat back down. Vice Admiral Strand took the podium. Let me be clear about lessons learned. This incident happened because officers forgot that every person on this base contributes to mission success. That janitors, technicians, cooks, and clerks are as essential as pilots and SEALs. That degrading anyone degrades all of us. She paused. Major Volkov cannot receive public honors for her service due to operational security requirements. But within this command, let it be known, she has served both her former country and her adopted nation with distinction that most of us will never match. Her dedication to mission over ego is the example we should all follow. Strand's voice hardened. When you see someone doing their job, any job, remember you don't know their story. Treat every person with respect they deserve as a human being. That's not weakness. That's strength. Dismissed. The room emptied slowly. Master Chief Riley approached Natasha outside. Major, word of advice. Yes, Master Chief. You move like a ghost. Took me 5 minutes to spot it, and I've been doing this 35 years. Don't lose that edge. He extended his hand. She shook it, grip firm but not competitive. Also, you ever want to guest lecture at Bud's about Russian infiltration tactics? I'll make the call. Those kids could learn from you. Small smile from Natasha. I'll consider it, Master Chief. Petty Officer Mills approached hesitantly, tablet under his arm. Ma'am, I knew something was wrong. I wanted to say something during the incident, but I was outranked and you were.
Outranked and outshouted, Natasha interrupted gently. That's not cowardice, that's reality. Still, I should have. Petty Officer, you recorded everything. Your documentation is why there were consequences. That took courage. Don't diminish it. Mills straightened. Thank you, ma'am. An hour later, in a private office, Commander Vance requested meeting with Natasha. They sat across a small desk, afternoon light slanting through blinds. Major, Vance began, hands folded, I've been thinking about what you said.
about women tearing each other down in male-dominated spaces. Natasha waited. I'm starting a mentorship program, junior female officers, teaching them how to support each other instead of competing. I can't undo what I did to you, but I can make sure the next generation doesn't learn from my bad example. That's exactly the right response, Commander. Thank you. Vance stood to leave, paused at the door. For what it's worth, you're the most capable person I've met in 15 years of service, and I'm sorry I couldn't see that when it mattered. You see it now. That's what counts. After Vance left, Natasha sat alone in the quiet office, pulled out her phone, stared at the screen for 30 seconds, then dialed a number she called every Thursday. Dr. Chen, a woman's voice answered, right on time. The nightmares are back, Natasha said quietly. Not Syria this time. Different. I'm back at Lubyanka, and Kozlov is there, laughing.
You were publicly humiliated 3 weeks ago. Your subconscious is connecting that vulnerability to past trauma.
I know that intellectually.
Knowing and feeling are different things. Have you told anyone on base?
No, they already see me as damaged Russian defector. I don't need them seeing me as broken.
Natasha, seeking help isn't weakness.
I know. I'm working on believing that.
They talked for 50 minutes. When she hung up, Natasha felt fractionally lighter. Not fixed, but less alone.
She opened her desk drawer, looked at the photograph that had arrived 2 days ago. Her brother Alexei and graduation robes. Her mother beside him, older but smiling. Message on the back in Russian. We are proud. We cannot write, but we love you. First tears she'd allowed herself in 6 months. She locked the photo away, composed herself, returned to work. 3 weeks after the formal proceedings, Natasha Volkov operated under modified cover. No longer a janitor. That position was unsustainable after public exposure. Her new designation? Civilian contractor, security consultant, special projects. Small office in the intelligence building, room 2847, badge marked classified access, escort required. The base knew her now. Not everything, but enough. The woman who'd been mocked was actually former Russian intelligence. The janitor who'd been challenged had outshot SEALs. Word spread through military communities like wildfire, and this fire had consumed 3 installations before being partially contained. She taught now advanced intelligence courses, small classes of analysts who'd requested specific training in Russian counterintelligence methodology. Her first class had 12 students. By week 3, she had a waiting list of 40. Thursday morning, 0730, she stood at the front of a classroom holding 30 analysts of mixed ranks. Whiteboard behind her displayed FSB organizational chart in Cyrillic with English translations. She was explaining surveillance detection routes when the door opened. Rear Admiral Hendricks. The room went silent. He wasn't supposed to be in this building. His reassignment placed him in the administrative annex across base. Coming here was deliberate. Major Volkov, he said quietly, may I have a moment? Students exchanged glances. This was their entertainment now, watching how the humiliated and the humiliator navigate their new reality. Class, review Chapter 7 on dead drop protocols. 10 minutes. The students filed out, several lingering in the hallway close enough to eavesdrop. Natasha didn't close the door. Whatever Hendricks wanted to say, he'd say it in semi-public. I wanted you to know, Hendricks began, hands clasped behind his back in parade rest. I've submitted retirement paperwork, effective in 90 days. Natasha said nothing. Let the silence work. 24 years in uniform. I thought I understood leadership. Turns out I was managing people, not leading them. What happened with you made me realize I stayed too long doing something I was never actually good at. Admiral, that's not why I know. You never asked for consequences. That's what makes them appropriate. He met her eyes. I'm not retiring because I was punished. I'm retiring because I finally recognized I'm in the wrong profession. Some people are meant for service. Others are meant for something else. I should have figured that out 20 years ago. Pause. 2 seconds. For what it's worth, watching you teach these analysts, seeing how you actually operate, you're twice the intelligence officer I ever was.
And I'm sorry it took humiliating you for me to see that. Natasha considered her response carefully. Admiral, I hope your next chapter is better than your last one. And I hope you take these lessons with you. He extended his hand. She shook it. Professional courtesy, nothing more. After he left, Master Chief Riley appeared from the stairwell. He'd been waiting, observing.
Serving. That took guts, Riley said, coming here. He's trying to be better. That's all anyone can do. You're more gracious than most would be. Grace costs me nothing, Master Chief. Bitterness would cost everything. 4 weeks after the incident, systemic changes became visible. The base had implemented dignity in service training, mandatory for all personnel. 8 hours of scenarios and discussion about unconscious bias, power dynamics, and respect across rank structures. Master Chief Riley ran half the sessions, using anonymized case study of Natasha's situation. He'd stripped identifying details but kept the essential elements: person in low-status position, public humiliation, revelation of hidden expertise, consequences for leadership. In Session 12, a young lieutenant raised his hand. Master Chief, in the case study, the person who was humiliated, did they stay on base after? They did. Why? After that treatment, most people would transfer. Riley glanced at Natasha, who was observing from the back of the room. Why don't you ask her yourself? Major Volkov, care to answer? Every head turned. The lieutenant's face went crimson. He hadn't realized she was present. Natasha stood, moved to the front. I stayed because leaving would mean the people who humiliated me had power over my choices. I wasn't going to give them that. Also, the mission I was assigned wasn't complete. Personal feelings don't override operational requirements. Another sailor asked, "How did you stay calm? I would have lost it. I've been shot at by actual enemies. Insults from people who don't know me are just noise." She paused. Also, anger would have proven them right, that I didn't belong, that I was unprofessional. Staying calm was the only winning move. A female petty officer, perhaps 22, spoke up. "Ma'am, I've experienced similar situations, not as extreme, but how do you deal with it long term? Doesn't it eat at you?" Natasha's expression softened. "Yes, it does. I have a therapist I talk to every week. CIA approved, security clearance, the whole process. Because pretending trauma doesn't affect you is how you break. Acknowledging it and getting help is how you survive." The room absorbed that. A major admitting to therapy, to vulnerability. It changed calculations. After the session, the young female petty officer approached. "Ma'am, I've been thinking about intelligence work, but everyone says women don't get respect in the field." "They don't," Natasha replied honestly. "You'll work twice as hard for half the credit. You'll be underestimated constantly. Men will dismiss your analysis, question your sources, credit your successes to luck or male colleagues. Then why do it? Because when you're good, truly good, you become indispensable, and that's worth more than respect. Respect is given or withheld by others. Indispensability is earned by results. Focus on results. Did you ever doubt yourself? Every single day. Still do. Doubt keeps you sharp. Overconfidence gets you killed." The petty officer nodded slowly. "Thank you, ma'am. That's more honest than I expected. Honesty is all I have. Use it well." 5 weeks post-incident, Special Agent Foster called with update. Natasha took it in her office, door closed. "Starling is back in play," Foster said without preamble. What changed? He heard about the incident through his intelligence network. Know what his exact response was? Any base where CIA asset gets publicly humiliated and everyone faces real consequences is a base that takes security seriously. He thinks the response proves we're legitimate, not compromised. Natasha leaned back in her chair. So our disaster became validation. Ironic, isn't it? He's willing to proceed. Arrival in 2 weeks. Your still primary security assessment, but now acknowledged role. He specifically requested you as part of reception team. Why? He said anyone who can survive FSB and U.S. Navy admirals can keep him alive. His words. After hanging up, Natasha allowed herself a smile. Small victory from massive failure. Intelligence work in a nutshell. 6 weeks after everything began, Natasha stood on the tarmac at 0300 hours. Private airfield, minimal lighting, black SUVs waiting. Vice Admiral Strand beside her, along with Foster and a 4-person security team. A small aircraft landed, taxied to predetermined position. Door opened, man descended. 50s, gray hair, worn leather jacket, eyes that never stopped moving. Colonel Mikhail Sokolov, GRU defector, codename Starling. Natasha greeted him in Russian. "Welcome, Colonel." He studied her for 5 seconds. "You are Nightjar from the story?" "Yes." "Good. If you survived FSB and American bureaucracy, perhaps you can keep me alive." He smiled without warmth. "They tell me you exposed Kozlov. I knew him. He was bastard. You did world a favor." "Thank you, Colonel. Call me Mikhail. We are both traitors now. May as well be friendly." They drove him to secure facility. During the ride, he asked questions in rapid Russian about security protocols, about personnel who'd be handling his debrief, about whether Americans could be trusted with information he carried. Natasha answered each question directly, no sugarcoating. When he asked if Americans were competent, she said, "Some are, some aren't, like everywhere. But the ones assigned to you are competent. I verified."
Personally. How? By testing every system they'll use, every person who'll have access, every protocol they'll follow. That was my job for 6 weeks. And the incident? The humiliation? Occupational hazard. Comes with being underestimated. Mikhail laughed, sharp, bitter sound. In GRU, they underestimated me because I read books, thought I was academic, not operator. Then I ran operations in 7 countries and they changed their assessment. People are idiots everywhere. Truth, Natasha agreed. Over the next 3 weeks, Mikhail's debriefing produced intelligence leading to arrest of 12 Russian officers embedded in U.S. defense contractors. 2 were preparing to exfiltrate classified missile defense data. 3 others were running influence operations. The network's exposure would take years to fully exploit, but the initial impact was significant. Vice Admiral Strand called Natasha to her office for private meeting. Starling's debriefing exceeded expectations, Strand said. CIA attributes much of his cooperation to your rapport building. He trusts you. We speak the same language, literally and figuratively. They want you for new assignment. Deep cover, overseas, high-value target. Natasha felt old tension return. Where? Can't say until you accept, but it's FSB adjacent, Eastern Europe. Your background would be critical. How long? Minimum 18 months, possibly longer. Silence for 10 seconds. I need to think about it. Strand nodded. 72 hours. For what it's worth, Major, you've built something here. Community, respect, purpose. Leaving that has a cost. That evening, Natasha walked along the base perimeter where a narrow beach met the ocean. Sunset painted the water orange and red. She'd walked this route 3 times a week for 6 weeks, thinking through problems, processing trauma, deciding what came next. For 8 years, she'd served Russia. For 6 years, she'd served America. But who did she serve if she'd forgotten who she was outside of service? She pulled out her phone, texted CIA handler. Respectfully decline overseas assignment. Request extension of current posting. Response came 30 seconds later. Acknowledged. Reasoning. She typed, still have work to do here. Teaching matters. And I'm not running anymore. Understood. Extension approved. Welcome home, Nightjar. She stared at those last 2 words. Welcome home. For the first time in 8 years, they felt true. The soft click of Natasha Volkov's office door closing at 0730 hours carried different weight than the metallic clang of that mop bucket 2 months ago. Same building, same base, different respect. Her office, small, functional, no windows, had become hub of quiet activity. Intelligence analysts sought her guidance on Russian collection methods. Young officers requested mentorship. Even SEALs occasionally knocked, asking technical questions about Eastern European operations with the careful respect of people who'd learned painful lessons about assumptions. The nameplate outside read, N. Volkov, Security Consultant, Special Projects. Deliberately vague. Those who needed to know her actual role knew. Others could make educated guesses. The ambiguity was intentional, protective, necessary. 8 weeks after the incident, she taught her morning class on Russian counterintelligence doctrine. 30 students, mixed services, all volunteers. She was mid-sentence about FSB surveillance methodology when a young woman in civilian clothes knocked on the open door. "Major Volkov, I'm Natalie Keegan, starting next week as maintenance technician in Building 7, security assessment role. They said you could brief me on protocols." The class went silent. Another undercover operative, another test of base security. The cycle continuing. Natasha smiled slightly. "Class, take 15 minutes. Read Chapter 9 on detection avoidance." Students filed out, buzzing with curiosity. Fresh scandal potential, fresh drama. The base had developed appetite for this particular brand of entertainment. Natalie entered, closed the door. 26 years old, blonde hair and practical ponytail, nervous energy barely contained. Natasha recognized the type. Brilliant, driven, terrified of failure. "First assignment?" Natasha asked. "First domestic. I did 2 years in Berlin, but that was different. Here, everyone speaks English. Harder to hide in plain sight. You'll be fine. Let me give you advice my first handler gave me. Stay invisible, don't react, and if anyone underestimates you, let them. Until it's time not to." What if they push too far, like what happened to you? Natasha considered. Then you remember why you're doing this. The mission matters more than your ego, more than their ignorance. You maintain cover until maintaining it becomes impossible. Then you trust that consequences will follow for the right people. That's harder than it sounds. Everything worth doing is. But you were chosen for this because someone believes you can handle it. Prove them right. After Natalie left, Master Chief Riley appeared in the doorway. "Another one? Building 7, 3-month assessment. Hope it goes smoother than yours." "Hope so too. But if it doesn't, at least now people know what consequences look like." Riley leaned against the doorframe. "You changed something here. Before you, people assumed rank equaled competence. Position, N equaled value. You complicated that equation." "I didn't do anything except my job." "Exactly. You did your job, absorbed abuse, demonstrated capability, and forced everyone to confront their assumptions. That's leadership without authority. Rarest kind. Wasn't trying to lead a Master Chief. Best leaders never are." 10 weeks post-incident, Natasha received official letter from CIA Director. Commendation for exceptional performance in operational security assessment and interagency cooperation. She read it once, filed it in locked drawer with other papers no one would see, and returned to lesson planning. That evening, she had her weekly call with Dr. Chen. "Nightmares still happening?" Chen asked. "Less frequently, maybe twice a week now instead of 5 times. "That's progress. What changed?" "I think I stopped feeling like I had to prove something. The people here either respect me or they don't. Either way, I know what I'm capable of. Their opinion doesn't define my reality." That's significant growth, Natasha. Doesn't mean it's easy. Last night I dreamed I was back in Syria, but everyone spoke English and wore Navy uniforms. My subconscious is creative with its anxiety. Trauma doesn't follow logic. You're doing the work, that's what matters. They talked for 50 minutes about integration, about identity, about building life that wasn't exclusively defined by intelligence work. Chen assigned homework. Do 1 non-work activity per week, something purely for enjoyment. Natasha chose running on the beach. 3 times a week, early morning before base fully woke. Just her and the ocean and the rhythm of breathing. No mission, no cover, no analysis. Just movement. 12 weeks after everything began, Petty Officer Devin Mills requested meeting. He'd been promoted to Petty Officer First Class, partially due to his detailed documentation during the original incident. His analytical skills had been noticed. "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you," Mills said, nervous in her office. "My documentation of what happened, it got me noticed by Intelligence Division. They're fast-tracking me into analyst program. You earned that, Petty Officer. Your work was thorough and unbiased. I also wanted to apologize. I should have spoken up during the incident, should have defended you." Natasha shook her head. "You were junior enlisted, facing senior officers. Speaking up could have destroyed your career. You did what you could. You documented everything. That took courage people aren't acknowledging. Still feels like I failed. Failure is staying silent forever. You spoke up through your actions.
That counts. Mills stood to leave, paused. Ma'am, can I ask something personal? Go ahead. Do you ever regret defecting, leaving everything behind? Long pause. 15 seconds. Every day, Natasha said quietly. I regret that it was necessary. I don't regret doing it. There's a difference. I miss my family. I miss my language being primary instead of secondary. I miss Moscow winters and knowing exactly how every system works. But I don't regret exposing Kozlov. I don't regret saving lives. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything, and you pay that cost anyway. Mills nodded slowly. Thank you for the honesty, ma'am. 16 weeks post-incident, base held informal ceremony. Not official, Natasha's status prevented formal recognition. But Master Chief Riley organized gathering of personnel who'd completed her training courses. 40 people, conference room, pizza, and soft drinks. Riley stood. Major Volkov has trained 40 intelligence analysts, 12 special operations personnel, and 8 allied liaison officers in Russian counterintelligence methodology. Her contributions have measurably improved our operational readiness. We wanted to say thank you. Awkward applause. These were military people, unaccustomed to expressing gratitude to civilians, even civilians with her background. Young ensign stood, clearly designated speaker. Ma'am, on behalf of everyone you've trained, we're better at our jobs because of you. We understand adversary mindset. We recognize vulnerabilities we would have missed. You didn't just teach us tactics. You taught us to question assumptions. That's invaluable. Natasha stood. You're all welcome, but understand, I'm not teaching you Russian tactics to make you paranoid. I'm teaching you so you recognize them and counter them. Intelligence work isn't about distrust. It's about informed trust. Know the threats, prepare for them, but don't let them poison how you see the world. The female petty officer who'd asked about pursuing intelligence work approached after. Ma'am, I applied for analyst program, used your recommendation. I got accepted. Congratulations. I wanted you to know, I'm not going to let anyone make me doubt my capability. If I'm good at the work, that speaks louder than anyone's assumptions. That's exactly right. Now go prove it. 20 weeks after the incident that changed everything, Natasha sat in her office late evening, reviewing lesson plans for advanced course on Russian cyber operations. Knock on the door. Commander Patricia Vance. They'd spoken briefly since the apologies, but this was different. Vance looked tired, older somehow, wearing working uniform instead of dress. Major, do you have a minute? Of course, Commander. Vance sat. The mentorship program I started for junior male officers, it's working. We have 20 participants now. They're supporting each other, sharing experiences, building network that will outlast any single assignment. That's excellent. One of them asked me this week, what's the biggest lesson I've learned? I told her about you, about how I let insecurity turn me cruel, how I mistook competition for strength. She asked if I'd apologized to you. I said yes. Then she asked if I'd forgiven myself. Silence. I haven't, Vance continued. I replay that day constantly. What I said, how I acted. I understand why consequences happened. I accept them. But forgiving myself feels impossible. Natasha leaned back. Commander, I'm not qualified to give you absolution. That's between you and your conscience. But I'll tell you what my therapist tells me. Guilt that drives change is useful. Guilt that paralyzes is destructive. You've changed your behavior. You're helping others avoid your mistakes. That's redemption in action. Does it balance out? I don't know if these things balance. Maybe they just accumulate. Good and bad, growth and regression, all part of being human. You're trying to be better. That's all anyone can do. Vance stood. Thank you, Major, for not making this harder than it already is. We're all trying to navigate the same complicated reality, Commander. Might as well help each other. 6 months after the incident, Natasha received a letter forwarded through CIA channels. Russian postmark, cleared by counterintelligence. Inside, a photograph of graduation ceremony. Her brother Alexei, master's degree in engineering. Her mother beside him, smiling despite everything. Note on back in Russian. He got job with European firm, away from FSB oversight. We are proud of both our children. We understand why you did what you did. Stay safe. We love you always." Natasha stared at photo for 5 minutes, then placed it on her desk, visible, no longer hiding in locked drawer. Part of her identity, acknowledged openly. Master Chief Riley saw it during visit. "Your family?" "Yes. First contact in 6 years. They're proud of you. They're proud despite me. There's a difference." "No, Major. They're proud of you for having courage to do impossible thing. That's what parents feel when children surpass them." "Maybe. Definitely." The base had changed, not completely. Prejudice and assumption didn't vanish overnight, but personnel thought twice before dismissing someone based on position. Officers questioned their gut reactions about capability. The culture shifted, incrementally, conversation by conversation. Natasha continued teaching, continued assessing, continued building bridges between Russian intelligence methodology and American counterintelligence practice. Starling's defection led to 3 more high-value assets reaching out, specifically requesting Natasha as handler. She'd become specialist in Russian defector management. 1 year after the incident, she walked the beach at sunset. Same route, same rhythm, but different purpose. No longer processing trauma, just enjoying the moment. Her phone buzzed. Text from Natalie Keegan, the new undercover operative. 3 months complete. 0 incidents. Your advice worked. Thank you. Natasha smiled. Progress measured in small victories. She typed back. Proud of you. Stay sharp. The ocean continued its endless rhythm. Waves breaking, reforming, breaking again. Constant change, constant renewal. Natasha understood that rhythm now. Break and reform. Fail and rebuild. Fall and rise. She'd been Russian intelligence, then American asset, then humiliated janitor, then validated operator, now teacher, mentor, bridge between worlds. All those identities, accumulated, none erased, all integrated. People ask if she regretted defecting, if she missed Russia. The truth? She missed who she was before learning how cruel people could be. But she didn't regret choosing to be better than her worst moments. Master Chief Riley found her on the beach. Deliberate timing. Thought I'd find you here. Predictable? Different thing. They walked together, in comfortable silence. Heard you turned down promotion to headquarters, Riley said. Why? Because work here matters. Teaching these analysts, training these officers, it has direct impact. Headquarters is strategy. This is implementation. I prefer implementation. Also because you've built something. Community, respect, home. Natasha considered. Yes, that too. For the first time since leaving Moscow, I feel like I belong somewhere. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. That's all anyone gets, Major. Enough. They reached the end of the beach, turned back toward base. Master Chief, thank you. For what? For seeing me when no one else did. For trusting your instincts. For treating me like person first, asset second. That's what good people do, Major. They see other people, all people, regardless of uniform or lack thereof. The sun set fully. Base lights flickered on in the distance. Another day complete. Another mission continuing. Natasha Volkov walked back toward the intelligence building, ready for tomorrow's class, tomorrow's challenges, tomorrow's opportunities to teach people that assumptions are dangerous, and respect is essential, and everyone deserves dignity, regardless of position. The mop bucket was long gone, but the lessons remained, and that, ultimately, was the point.